Welcome, fellow dreamers, to a world where the boundaries of reality and fantasy blur. I am Aurora, your guide through this mystical journey. Tonight, we embark on an adventure where heroes rise, friendships are forged, and the extraordinary becomes possible. Before we begin, take a moment to find a comfortable position. Close your eyes and take a deep breath in, filling your lungs with calm. Now, slowly exhale, releasing any tension you may be holding. Feel the weight of the day melt away as you continue to breathe deeply and evenly. Allow your mind to drift, free from worries and distractions. With each breath, sink deeper into a state of relaxation. Let the soothing sounds of the night envelop you, and let the magic of this story carry you away to a place where dreams and reality intertwine. It was a crisp autumn afternoon when the first of the invitations arrived. Ichigo Kurosaki was in the middle of his usual routine, balancing schoolwork with his duties as a substitute soul reaper, when a small, elegantly folded piece of parchment materialized on his desk. The paper was of a quality he had never seen before, smooth and slightly glossy, with a faint scent of jasmine. He unfolded it carefully, his curiosity piqued. "Dear Ichigo," the note began in a flowing, almost calligraphic script. "You are cordially invited to a tea party at Urahara's shop this evening. Your presence is requested at 6 p.m. sharp. Dress comfortably. Yours sincerely, Kisuke Urahara." Ichigo frowned, turning the invitation over in his hands. A tea party? At Urahara's? The very idea seemed out of character for the eccentric shopkeeper. He couldn't help but wonder what Urahara was up to this time. Nevertheless, his curiosity got the better of him, and he decided to attend. Meanwhile, across town, Orihime was just finishing her shift at the local bakery when she found a similar invitation tucked into her apron pocket. She read it with a delighted smile, her mind already racing with thoughts of what kind of treats might be served at the tea party. Orihime had always had a sweet tooth, and the prospect of a relaxing evening with friends was too good to pass up. Chad received his invitation while he was practicing his guitar in his apartment. The envelope had been slipped under his door, and he picked it up with a mix of curiosity and caution. Chad wasn't one for social gatherings, but the thought of spending time with his friends in a peaceful setting was appealing. He decided to go, hoping it would be a quiet evening. Rukia was in the Soul Society, attending to her duties as a soul reaper, when a hell butterfly delivered her invitation. She read it with a raised eyebrow, wondering what Urahara was planning. Despite her reservations, she knew that any event hosted by Urahara was bound to be interesting, if not outright bizarre. She made arrangements to travel to the world of the living, eager to see her friends again. Yorichi, ever the enigma, received her invitation while lounging in her feline form on a rooftop. She transformed back into her human form, reading the note with a mischievous grin. A tea party at Urahara's shop? She couldn't wait to see what kind of chaos would ensue. She leapt off the rooftop, her mind already buzzing with anticipation. Toshiro and Rangiku were in the middle of a training session when their invitations arrived. Toshiro read his with a frown, while Rangiku's eyes lit up with excitement. "A tea party? How fun!" she exclaimed, already imagining the array of sweets that would be served. Toshiro sighed, knowing that there was no way he could refuse. He just hoped it wouldn't turn into one of Urahara's infamous training exercises. As the clock struck 6, the group began to gather outside Urahara's shop. The sun was setting, casting a warm golden glow over the street. Ichigo was the first to arrive, followed closely by Orihime and Chad. They greeted each other with smiles and small talk, their curiosity about the evening's events growing with each passing minute. Rukia arrived next, her Soul Reaper uniform pristine as always. She nodded to the others, her expression a mix of curiosity and caution. Yoruichi appeared seemingly out of nowhere, her grin as wide as ever. "This should be interesting," she said, her eyes sparkling with mischief. Toshiro and Rangiku were the last to arrive, the young captain looking as serious as ever, while Rangiku practically bounced with excitement. "I can't wait to see what kind of tea Urahara has prepared," she said, her eyes scanning the shop's entrance. Just as the group was beginning to wonder if they had been pranked, the door to Urahara's shop swung open. Kisuke Urahara himself stood in the doorway, his trademark striped hat tilted at a jaunty angle. "Welcome, welcome," he said, his voice warm and inviting. "Please come in. The tea party is just about to begin." The group followed Urahara inside, their curiosity piqued. The shop's interior had been transformed into a serene, almost otherworldly space. Soft ambient lighting bathed the room in a gentle glow, and the air was filled with the soothing scent of incense. An array of delicate tea sets was arranged on low tables, each one a work of art in its own right. Urahara led them to a large circular table in the center of the room. "Please take a seat," he said, gesturing to the plush cushions arranged around the table. The group settled in, their initial wariness giving way to a sense of anticipation. As they sipped their tea, the conversation flowed easily. Yoruichi teased Toshiro about his stern demeanor, much to the young captain's chagrin. Rangiku, true to form, kept sneaking extra sweets from the table, her eyes twinkling with mischief. Orihime shared stories from her latest culinary experiments, while Chad listened quietly, a small smile playing on his lips. Ichigo, however, couldn't shake the feeling that something was off. He glanced around the room, his senses on high alert. The reiatsu in the shop felt different, almost as if it were alive. He caught Urahara's eye, but the shopkeeper merely smiled and took another sip of his tea. Despite his unease, Ichigo found himself relaxing. The tea was fragrant and soothing, and the company of his friends was a welcome respite from the constant battles and challenges they faced. He allowed himself to enjoy the moment, even as a small part of his mind remained vigilant. As the evening wore on, the group began to unwind. Laughter filled the room, and the atmosphere grew increasingly warm and convivial. Urahara watched them with a satisfied smile, his eyes twinkling with a secret knowledge. He knew that the real purpose of the evening had yet to be revealed, but for now, he was content to let his guests enjoy the calm before the storm. The soft clinking of porcelain and the gentle murmur of conversation filled the room as the group settled into their seats. The tea, a delicate blend of jasmine and green tea, was served in exquisite cups that seemed almost too beautiful to use. The calming scent of incense wafted through the air, creating an atmosphere of tranquility. Orihime took a sip of her tea, her eyes lighting up with delight. "This is wonderful, Urahara-san. Did you blend this tea yourself?" Urahara chuckled, his eyes twinkling with amusement. "I can't take all the credit, Orihime. It's a special blend from a friend of mine. I'm glad you like it." Rangiku reached for another sweet, her eyes sparkling with mischief. "These sweets are amazing too. I could get used to this kind of training." Toshiro sitting next to her sighed. Rangiku, this isn't training. It's just a tea party. Yorichi leaned back, a playful grin on her face. Oh, come on, Toshiro. Can't you just enjoy the moment? It's not every day we get to relax like this. Ichigo, still feeling a bit uneasy, glanced around the room. The reiatsu in the shop felt different, almost as if it were alive. He couldn't shake the feeling that something was off, but for now, he decided to go along with it. After all, it wasn't often that they got to enjoy a peaceful evening together. As the conversation flowed, the group began to share stories and memories. Oriheim recounted a particularly amusing incident from her latest cooking experiment, causing everyone to burst into laughter. Chad, ever the quiet one, listened with a small smile, occasionally adding a comment or two. Yoruichi, always the instigator, decided to tease Toshiro about his stern demeanor. You know, Toshiro, you should really lighten up. You're always so serious. It's a tea party, not a strategy meeting. Toshiro's eyes narrowed slightly, but there was a hint of a smile on his lips. Someone has to keep an eye on things, Yoruichi, especially when you're around. Rangiku, taking advantage of the moment, reached for yet another sweet. He's right, you know, but I have to admit, this is a nice change of pace. Rukia, who had been quietly observing the interactions, finally spoke up. It's good to see everyone like this. We don't often get the chance to just relax and enjoy each other's company. Urahara, who had been watching the group with a satisfied smile, nodded in agreement. That's exactly why I wanted to do this. We all need a break sometimes. And what better way to relax than with good tea and good company? As the evening wore on, the atmosphere grew increasingly warm and convivial. The group continued to share stories and laughter, the worries of their daily lives temporarily forgotten. The tea and sweets seemed to have a calming effect, and even Ichigo found himself relaxing despite his earlier unease. However, as the conversation continued, Ichigo couldn't help but notice subtle changes in the room. The reiatsu seemed to pulse gently, almost as if it were responding to their emotions. He glanced at Urahara, who was calmly sipping his tea, a knowing smile on his face. Urahara-san, Ichigo began, his voice cautious. Is there something you're not telling us? Urahara's smile widened slightly, but he didn't answer immediately. Instead, he set his teacup down and looked around the room, his eyes twinkling with amusement. Ichigo, my boy, you worry too much. Just enjoy the tea party. Ichigo frowned, but decided to let it go for now. He took another sip of his tea, trying to push his concerns to the back of his mind. After all, it wasn't often that they got to enjoy a peaceful evening together, and he didn't want to spoil it for everyone else. As the evening continued, the group began to feel more and more at ease. The tea and sweets seemed to have a soothing effect, and the conversation flowed effortlessly. Even Toshiro, who was usually so serious, found himself relaxing and enjoying the moment. Rangiku, ever the social butterfly, decided to share a particularly amusing story from their latest mission. So there we were, in the middle of a battle, and Toshiro here decides to lecture the enemy on proper combat etiquette. You should have seen the look on their faces. The group burst into laughter, and even Toshiro couldn't help but smile. I was just trying to maintain some semblance of order, he said, his tone defensive but good-natured. Yoruichi leaned back, her eyes sparkling with amusement. That's our Toshiro, always the voice of reason, even in the heat of battle. As the laughter died down, Oriheim looked around the room, her eyes shining with happiness. I'm so glad we could all be here together. It's moments like these that remind me how important our friendships are. Chad nodded in agreement, his deep voice adding to the sense of camaraderie. We've been through a lot together. It's good to take a moment to appreciate that. Rukia smiled, her eyes softening. I couldn't agree more. We've faced so many challenges, but we've always come through them stronger. And it's because of moments like this. Urahara watched the group with a satisfied smile, his eyes twinkling with a secret knowledge. He knew that the real purpose of the evening had yet to be revealed. But for now, he was content to let his guests enjoy the calm before the storm. As the evening wore on, the group continued to relax and enjoy each other's company. The tea and sweets seemed to have a magical effect, and even Ichigo found himself letting go of his earlier concerns. The atmosphere was warm and inviting, and for a few precious hours, they were able to forget about the battles and challenges that awaited them. Little did they know, the true nature of Urahara's tea party was about to be revealed, and their peaceful evening was about to take a surprising turn. The atmosphere in Urahara's shop was warm and convivial, with laughter and light-hearted conversation filling the room. The group had settled into a comfortable rhythm, enjoying the tea and sweets while sharing stories and memories. Ichigo, despite his earlier unease, found himself relaxing in the company of his friends. Just as the group was beginning to truly unwind, Urahara stood up, his expression shifting from playful to serious. He clapped his hands together, drawing everyone's attention. Ladies and gentlemen, I hope you've enjoyed the tea and sweets, he began, his voice carrying a note of anticipation. But I'm afraid the real reason I've gathered you here tonight is about to be revealed. The room fell silent, and the group exchanged puzzled glances. Ichigo's earlier suspicions resurfaced, and he sat up straighter, his senses on high alert. What do you mean, Urahara-san? He asked, his voice cautious. Urahara's grin widened, and he reached into his sleeve, pulling out a small, intricately carved wooden box. He placed it on the table and opened it, revealing a collection of delicate vials filled with a shimmering golden liquid. This tea party, he said, gesturing to the vials, is actually a carefully crafted training exercise. The group's eyes widened in surprise, and Rangiku let out a groan. I knew it was too good to be true, she muttered. Reaching for another sweet, Urahara chuckled, his eyes twinkling with amusement. Now, don't be so quick to judge. The tea you've been drinking is infused with a mild energy stimulant designed to enhance your spiritual pressure control. And the room itself, he continued, waving his hand, is rigged with subtle barriers that will test your abilities. As he spoke, the room seemed to come alive. The ambient lighting shifted, casting strange, flickering shadows on the walls. The air grew thick with reiatsu, and the group could feel their powers beginning to surge unpredictably. Ichigo's eyes narrowed, and he stood up, his hand instinctively reaching for his sanpakuto. What are you trying to do, Urahara-san? Urahara raised his hands in a placating gesture. Relax, Ichigo. This is all part of the exercise. The barriers are designed to push your limits and help you gain better control over your powers. Think of it as a more refined version of your usual training. Yorichi, ever the thrill-seeker, grinned and stretched her arms above her head. Sounds like fun. Let's see what you've got, Urahara. Toshiro, his expression serious, nodded in agreement. If this will help us improve, then I'm all for it. But don't think we'll go easy on you. Rukia, her eyes focused and determined, stood up as well. Let's do this. We're ready. With a flick of his wrist, Urahara activated the barriers. The room was instantly filled with a surge of energy, and the group's reiatsu flared wildly. The once peaceful tea party was transformed into a chaotic training ground, with each member struggling to control their powers. Oriheim gasped as her shields flickered and wavered, the energy stimulant amplifying her abilities beyond her usual limits. She focused, her brow furrowing in concentration as she tried to stabilize the fluctuating energy. Chad, his usually calm demeanor replaced with a look of intense focus, clenched his fists as his spiritual pressure surged. He could feel the power coursing through his veins, and he knew he had to find a way to control it. Ichigo, his senses heightened, felt his bankai stirring within him. The energy stimulant was pushing him to his limits, and he struggled to maintain control. He glanced at Urahara, who was watching them with a calm, almost amused expression. "Come on, Ichigo," Urahara called out, his voice carrying over the chaos. "You can do better than that. Focus on your control." Ichigo gritted his teeth, his determination flaring. He closed his eyes, centering himself, and began to channel his reiatsu more deliberately. Slowly but surely, he felt the wild energy begin to stabilize. Rangiku, her usual playful demeanor replaced with a look of fierce concentration, struggled to manage the surging energy. She could feel her powers fluctuating wildly, and she knew she had to find a way to control them. Toshiro, his eyes narrowed in focus, called upon his ice-based abilities. The room grew colder as he summoned his power, the ice forming intricate patterns around him. He could feel the barriers pushing him to his limits, but he refused to back down. Yoruichi, ever the agile fighter, moved with fluid grace as she navigated the chaotic energy. She could feel the stimulant, amplifying her abilities, and she reveled in the challenge. "This is more like it," she called out, her voice filled with excitement. Rukia, her expression determined, focused on her zanpakuto. She could feel the energy surging through her, and she knew she had to find a way to control it. She took a deep breath, centering herself, and began to channel her reiatsu more deliberately. As the group struggled to manage the fluctuations, Urahara watched them with a satisfied smile. He knew that this exercise would push them to their limits, but he also knew that it would help them grow stronger. "You're doing great, everyone," he called out, his voice encouraging. "Keep it up." Slowly but surely, the group began to gain control over their powers. Oriheim's shield stabilized, the golden light shimmering with a steady glow. Chad's spiritual pressure became more focused, his fists glowing with a controlled energy. Ichigo's bankai settled into a steady rhythm, the wild energy now under his control. Rangiku, her eyes shining with determination, managed to stabilize her powers. The wild fluctuations now a thing of the past. Toshiro's ice-based abilities became more refined, the intricate patterns forming with precision. Yoruichi, ever the agile fighter, moved with a fluid grace, her powers now under her control. Rukia's reiatsu became more focused, her zanpakuto glowing with a steady light. Urahara watched them with a satisfied smile, his eyes twinkling with amusement. Well done, everyone. You've all made great progress. The group, exhausted but satisfied, finally managed to stabilize their powers. The room, once chaotic, now felt harmonious as their energies synchronized. They looked at each other, their expressions a mix of relief and accomplishment. Ichigo, his breathing heavy, looked at Urahara with a newfound respect. That was intense, Urahara-san, but I can see why you did it. Urahara nodded, his expression serious. You all have incredible potential, but you need to learn to control your powers. This exercise was designed to help you do just that. Rangiku, her usual playful demeanor returning, grinned. Well, I have to admit, it was effective. But next time, can we have a real tea party? The group laughed, the tension of the exercise melting away. Urahara smiled, his eyes twinkling with amusement. Of course, Rangiku, you've all earned it. As the evening wound down, the group finally enjoyed a proper tea party. The atmosphere was warm and inviting, and for a few precious hours they were able to relax and enjoy each other's company. They knew that the challenges ahead would be difficult, but they also knew that they were stronger and more prepared than ever before. The room was still buzzing with residual energy as the group began to catch their breath. The intense training exercise had pushed them to their limits, but they had emerged stronger and more in control of their powers. Urahara watched them with a satisfied smile, knowing that the evening had been a success. Just as the group was beginning to relax, a sudden spike in Reiatsu outside the shop caught Ichigo's attention. He turned towards the door, his senses on high alert. Someone's coming, he said, his voice tense. Before anyone could react, the door to Urahara's shop swung open, and 3 familiar figures stepped inside. Byakuya, Renji, and Shonsui entered the room, their expressions a mix of curiosity and concern. Byakuya's eyes scanned the room, taking in the sight of the exhausted group and the lingering traces of energy. What is going on here, Urahara? He asked, his voice calm but authoritative. Urahara, ever the picture of nonchalance, took a sip of his tea before answering. Ah, Byakuya, Renji, Shonsui. Welcome. We were just finishing up a little training exercise. Renji's eyes widened as he looked around the room. Training exercise? It looks more like a battlefield in here. Shonsui chuckled, his eyes twinkling with amusement. Leave it to Urahara to turn a tea party into a training session. I should have known. Byakuya raised an eyebrow, his gaze shifting to the group. And what exactly was the purpose of this exercise? Urahara set his teacup down and stood up, his expression serious. The purpose was to help them gain better control over their powers. The tea they drank was infused with a mild energy stimulant, and the room was rigged with barriers to test their spiritual pressure control. Shunsui nodded, his expression thoughtful. Interesting approach. And how did they do? Urahara smiled, his eyes twinkling with pride. They did exceptionally well. Each of them managed to stabilize their powers and gain better control. It was a challenging exercise, but they rose to the occasion. Byakuya's gaze softened slightly as he looked at the group. Impressive. It seems you have all made significant progress. Ichigo, still catching his breath, nodded. It was intense, but it was worth it. We learned a lot. Oriheim, her face flushed with exertion, smiled. It was challenging, but it helped us understand our powers better. Chad, his usual calm demeanor returning, added, "It was a good experience. We needed this." Rukia, her eyes shining with determination, looked at Byakuya. "It was tough, but we managed. We're stronger now." Renji, ever the supportive friend, grinned. "That's what I like to hear. You guys are always pushing yourselves to get better." Shunsui, ever the laid-back captain, poured himself a cup of tea and took a sip. "Well, it looks like Urahara's unconventional methods have paid off once again. Cheers to that." Byakuya, his expression still composed, nodded in approval. "Indeed. It seems this exercise was a success." As the group began to relax once more, the atmosphere in the room shifted from tense to celebratory. The presence of the captains added a sense of validation to their efforts, and they felt a renewed sense of camaraderie. Urahara, ever the gracious host, gestured to the table. "Now that the training is over, please join us for some tea. You've all earned it." Byakuya, Renji, and Shunsui took their seats, and the group settled in for a proper tea party. The conversation flowed easily, with the captains offering advice and sharing stories from their own experiences. Shunsui, always the storyteller, regaled them with tales of his adventures, his voice filled with warmth and humor. Byakuya, though more reserved, offered insightful observations and occasional compliments, his presence lending an air of gravitas to the gathering. Renji, ever the enthusiastic supporter, encouraged the group and shared his own training tips. As the evening wore on, the group felt a deep sense of satisfaction. They had faced a challenging exercise and emerged stronger, and now they were able to enjoy the company of their friends and mentors. The tea party, which had started as a cryptic invitation, had turned into an unforgettable experience. Urahara watched them with a contented smile, knowing that they were better prepared for the challenges ahead. He raised his teacup in a silent toast, his eyes twinkling with pride and amusement. The evening continued with laughter and camaraderie, the bonds between them growing stronger with each passing moment. They knew that the road ahead would be difficult, but they also knew that they had the strength and support of their friends to see them through. As the night drew to a close, the group began to disperse, each member feeling a renewed sense of purpose and determination. Byakuya, Renji, and Shunsui bid their farewells, their presence having added a sense of validation to the evening's events. Ichigo, Orihime, Chad, Rukia, Yoruichi, Toshiro, and Rangiku left Urahara's shop with a sense of accomplishment and camaraderie. They knew that they were stronger and more prepared for whatever challenges lay ahead. Urahara watched them go, his heart filled with pride. He knew that they had the potential to achieve great things, and he was grateful to have played a part in their journey. As the door closed behind them, Urahara took a moment to reflect on the evening's events. He knew that the training exercise had been a success, but more importantly, he knew that the bonds between them had grown stronger. And in the end, that was what mattered most. The room was filled with a sense of accomplishment as the group settled back into their seats, the intense training exercise behind them. The presence of Byakuya, Renji, and Shunsui had added a layer of validation to their efforts, and they felt a renewed sense of camaraderie. Urahara, ever the observant host, watched them with a satisfied smile. "Now that the training is complete, let's take a moment to reflect on what we've learned," he said, his voice calm and encouraging. "Each of you made significant progress tonight, and it's important to recognize those breakthroughs. Orihime, her face still flushed with exertion, nodded eagerly. I felt my shields becoming stronger and more stable. It was challenging, but I think I understand my powers better now. Urahara nodded in approval. Indeed, Orihime. Your ability to enhance your shields is crucial, and tonight you demonstrated remarkable control. Keep practicing, and you'll continue to improve. Chad, his usual calm demeanor returning, added, I felt my spiritual pressure becoming more focused. It was difficult at first, but I managed to control it. Urahara smiled. Excellent, Chad. Your offensive techniques are powerful, but control is key. You've made great strides tonight. Ichigo, his breathing still heavy, looked at Urahara with a newfound respect. I felt my bankai becoming more stable. The energy stimulant pushed me to my limits, but it helped me understand my powers better. Urahara's eyes twinkled with amusement. That's the idea, Ichigo. Pushing your limits helps you grow stronger. You've done well. Rangiku, her usual playful demeanor returning, grinned. I managed to stabilize my powers, even though it was tough. But I have to admit, it was effective. Urahara chuckled. I'm glad to hear that, Rangiku. Your determination paid off. Keep up the good work. Toshiro, his expression serious, nodded in agreement. The barriers pushed me to refine my ice-based abilities. It was challenging, but I feel more in control now. Urahara's smile widened. That's exactly what I hoped to achieve, Toshiro. Your precision and control are impressive. Keep honing your skills. Yorichi, ever the agile fighter, leaned back with a satisfied grin. The stimulant amplified my abilities, and I reveled in the challenge. It was a good test of my control. Urahara nodded. Your agility and control are remarkable, Yorichi. Tonight's exercise was a testament to your skills. Rukia, her eyes shining with determination, looked at Urahara. I felt my Reiyatsu becoming more focused. It was difficult, but I managed to control it. Urahara's expression softened. You've made great progress, Rukia. Your focus and determination are commendable. Keep pushing yourself. Byakuya, who had been observing silently, finally spoke up. Each of you demonstrated significant growth tonight. It's clear that Urahara's methods, unconventional as they may be, have been effective. Shunsui, ever the supportive mentor, nodded in agreement. You've all done exceptionally well. Remember to take these lessons with you and continue to build on them. Renji, his eyes filled with pride, grinned. You guys are amazing. Keep pushing yourselves, and you'll achieve great things. As the group reflected on their breakthroughs, the atmosphere in the room grew warm and celebratory. They had faced a challenging exercise and emerged stronger, and now they were able to enjoy the company of their friends and mentors. Urahara, ever the gracious host, gestured to the table. Now that the training is over, let's enjoy a proper tea party. You've all earned it. The group settled back into their seats, the tension of the exercise melting away. The conversation flowed easily, with the captains offering advice and sharing stories from their own experiences. Shunsui, always the storyteller, regaled them with tales of his adventures, his voice filled with warmth and humor. There was this one time in the Rukongai when I had to outdrink a group of rowdy souls just to keep the peace. Let's just say it was a night to remember. Rangiku laughed, her eyes sparkling with amusement. I would have loved to see that. You must have some incredible stories, Shunsui. Shunsui winked. Oh, I've got plenty. Maybe I'll share a few more if you promise to keep them a secret. Byakuya, though more reserved, offered insightful observations. Control and precision are essential in battle. Tonight's exercise was a valuable lesson in both. Toshiro nodded in agreement. It was a tough exercise, but it helped us understand our limits and how to push beyond them. Renji, ever the enthusiastic supporter, encouraged the group. You guys did great. Keep pushing yourselves, and you'll keep getting stronger. Oriheim, her face glowing with happiness, looked around the room. I'm so grateful for all of you. We've been through so much together. And it's moments like these that remind me how important our friendships are. Chad, his deep voice adding to the sense of camaraderie, nodded. We've faced many challenges, but we've always come through them stronger. Tonight was another step forward. Rukia smiled, her eyes softening. I couldn't agree more. We've grown so much, and it's because of moments like this. Urahara watched them with a contented smile, knowing that they were better prepared for the challenges ahead. He raised his teacup in a silent toast, his eyes twinkling with pride and amusement. The evening continued with laughter and camaraderie, the bonds between them growing stronger with each passing moment. They knew that the road ahead would be difficult, but they also knew that they had the strength and support of their friends to see them through. As the night drew to a close, the group began to disperse, each member feeling a renewed sense of purpose and determination. Byakuya, Renji, and Shunsui bid their farewells, their presence having added a sense of validation to the evening's events. Ichigo, Oriheim, Chad, Rukia, Yoruichi, Toshiro, and Renjiku left Urahara's shop with a sense of accomplishment and camaraderie. They knew that they were stronger and more prepared for whatever challenges lay ahead. Urahara watched them go, his heart filled with pride. He knew that they had the potential to achieve great things, and he was grateful to have played a part in their journey. As the door closed behind them, Urahara took a moment to reflect on the evening's events. He knew that the training exercise had been a success, but more importantly, he knew that the bonds between them had grown stronger. And in the end, that was what mattered most. With the intense training exercise finally behind them, the group settled back into their seats, the atmosphere in Urahara's shop shifting from chaotic to serene. The barriers had been deactivated, and the room was once again filled with the calming scent of incense and the soft glow of ambient lighting. Urahara, ever the gracious host, clapped his hands together. Well done, everyone. You've all made remarkable progress tonight. Now, let's enjoy a proper tea party. Rangiku, ever the lover of sweets, immediately perked up. Finally! I've been eyeing those pastries all evening, she said, reaching for a plate of delicate confections. Toshiro sighed, but there was a hint of a smile on his lips. You never change, do you, Rangiku? Rangiku grinned, her eyes twinkling with mischief. Why would I? Life's too short to skip dessert. Yorichi, lounging comfortably on a cushion, chuckled. She's got a point, Toshiro. Besides, after all that training, we deserve a treat. Ichigo, still catching his breath, couldn't help but laugh. I have to admit, this is a nice change of pace. Thanks, Urahara-san. Urahara smiled, his eyes twinkling with amusement. You're welcome, Ichigo. It's important to balance hard work with relaxation. As the group settled in, the conversation flowed easily. Oriheim, ever the enthusiastic cook, began discussing her latest culinary experiments. I've been working on a new recipe for red bean paste cookies. I think I've finally perfected it. Chad, his deep voice adding to the sense of camaraderie, nodded. I'd love to try them, Oriheim. Your cooking is always amazing. Rukia, her eyes shining with interest, leaned forward. Maybe you could bring some to our next training session. We could use the energy boost. Oriheim beamed. I'd be happy to. I'll make a big batch for everyone. Shunsui, ever the storyteller, decided to share a humorous anecdote. You know, this reminds me of a time when Jushiro and I tried to host a tea party in the Seirete. Let's just say it didn't go quite as smoothly as tonight. Rangyiku's eyes sparkled with curiosity. Oh, do tell. What happened? Shunsui chuckled, his eyes twinkling with amusement. Well, we thought it would be a good idea to invite everyone, including Kenpachi. Let's just say he wasn't exactly interested in tea. He ended up challenging everyone to a sparring match right in the middle of the party. The group burst into laughter, the image of Kenpachi crashing a tea party too amusing to resist. Even Byakuya's lips twitched in a rare smile. Renji, ever the enthusiastic supporter, grinned. I can totally see that happening. Kenpachi never misses a chance for a good fight. As the laughter died down, Urahara poured more tea, the soothing aroma filling the room. It's moments like these that remind us of the importance of balance. We've faced many challenges, but it's important to take time to relax and enjoy each other's company. Byakuya, his expression composed, nodded in agreement. Indeed. Tonight has been a valuable reminder of the strength of our bonds. Toshiro, his serious demeanor softening, added, We've grown stronger together, and it's because of moments like this. Yoruichi, ever the playful one, stretched her arms above her head. Well, I don't know about you all, but I could get used to this. Maybe we should make tea parties a regular thing. Ranjiku's eyes lit up. I second that. As long as there are plenty of sweets, I'm in. Oriheim clapped her hands in delight. I'll bring the cookies. Ichigo, feeling a sense of warmth and camaraderie, smiled. Sounds like a plan. We could all use more moments like this. As the evening wore on, the group continued to enjoy the tea and sweets, the conversation flowing easily. They shared stories, laughed, and reflected on their journey together. The atmosphere was warm and inviting, and for a few precious hours, they were able to forget about the battles and challenges that awaited them. Urahara watched them with a contented smile, knowing that they were better prepared for the challenges ahead. He raised his teacup in a silent toast, his eyes twinkling with pride and amusement. The evening continued with laughter and camaraderie, the bonds between them growing stronger with each passing moment. They knew that the road ahead would be difficult, but they also knew that they had the strength and support of their friends to see them through. As the night drew to a close, the group began to disperse, each member feeling a renewed sense of purpose and determination. Byakuya, Renji, and Shunsui bid their farewells, their presence having added a sense of validation to the evening's events. Ichigo, Oriheim, Chad, Rukia, Yoruichi, Toshiro, and Rangiku left Urahara's shop with a sense of accomplishment and camaraderie. They knew that they were stronger and more prepared for whatever challenges lay ahead. Urahara watched them go, his heart filled with pride. He knew that they had the potential to achieve great things, and he was grateful to have played a part in their journey. As the door closed behind them, Urahara took a moment to reflect on the evening's events. He knew that the training exercise had been a success, but more importantly, he knew that the bonds between them had grown stronger. And in the end, that was what mattered most. With a satisfied sigh, Urahara poured himself one last cup of tea and settled into his chair, the warmth of the evening's camaraderie lingering in the air. He knew that the challenges ahead would be formidable, but he also knew that together they could face anything.